What is up, YouTube? My name is Gary Blackwood. Welcome back to the vlog. Look, I get it. You don't care what I had for breakfast. You want to see poker? Let's give you poker. We're playing 5, 10, 20 for the vast majority of the day today, which I'm all for. Bigger game, deeper buy-in, better rake structure. But the game's not going to start 5, 10, 20. It's going to be 5, 5, 10 for the first hour or so. I play one significant pot of note in this game, and it's actually quite a fun hand. I'm in the cutoff with a couple of J-boys. The Hijack is one of the regulars in the game. He has featured many times in this vlog. He's usually the guy that I've got a set against. He's literally just been stacked in the last hand, and he is right back in the saddle here, opening on up to $60 with the straddle being on. I'm going to try and heap more misery on this guy by 3-betting to $180. It folds back round to him, and he 4-bets to $575. Remember, that's a $1,500 cap right now, so calling feels a bit silly. It's a shove or fold spot, and I'll give you guys one guess what Gazzy B123 decides to do here. I, of course, go all in. He doesn't snap call, which is always good, but after a couple of seconds, he shrugs, calls it off. I turn over my jacks, and he says, well, you're good right now. He's a run it twice kind of guy. I'm a run it twice kind of guy. We're going twice, and at the end of the first board, he turns over pocket kings. I jokingly said, I thought you said I was good right now. And he said, no, I said I was good right now. Another player at the table pipes up and says that he heard what I heard, and the player was adamant that he didn't say that I was good. He said that he was good. Still with me? Well, I've just watched back the audio, and it turns out he's absolutely right. He didn't say I was good. He said he was good. He's a vlog watcher, so Mr. Z, if you're watching, please do accept my apologies. So as mentioned, the game is going to convert to 5, 10, 20 after just an hour today. I love this bigger, deeper game, and it doesn't take long before I play my first hand in this new game. Third Man Walking podcast host Charlie has raised to $60 in the cutoff. I'm in the big blind with Jack 9 offsuit, and now there's no rake taken out of every pot. We're playing time rake. This means I can profitably make this call. As I make the call, he says,
do you actually have a hand, or are you just doing content right now?
What do you mean?
A little taken aback by that. No, I'm not just wailing about for YouTube. I would never do that. To the flop we go. It is Jack 9-5 with 2 spades. He bets $65, and I put in the check raise to $260, and he makes the fold. I tell him that he's going to have to watch the vlog to see if I had a hand or not. Charlie, if you're watching, of course I had a hand. Alright, 30 minutes later, I'm in the big blind with Queen 10 offsuit. The action is folded all the way around to the middle blind, and he raises it on up to $50. I, of course, make the call. We're going heads up to the flop. It is 9-7-6 with 2 diamonds. I've got a gut shot, 2 overcards to the board, and I'm in position. So when he bets here for $50, I, of course, make the call. To the turn, it is the Jack of spades. 2 flush draws on board now, and my opponent bets again for $200. I don't love it, but given we're in position and we can bluff the river, and we have the overcard to the board along with this open-ended straight draw, I think it's a pretty mandatory call. To the river, can we get there? Nope, it is the ace of clubs. My opponent bets again for $450. And just as I'm thinking of doing something very, very stupid, I just make the fold. Alright, next up is an important hand. This is a giveaway that I ran with one of my YouTube shorts, and the winner is about to be announced. This is the hand in question. I'm on the button here with the ace-king offsuit and raise it on up to $60. The small blind is a local pro. He makes it $240 to go off of about $3,200. It falls back round to me, and I've got a 4-betting hand here, so I go ahead and make it $575 to go. He thinks for a moment, and he makes the call. Heads up to the flop here, hoping for some big cards, but it comes down 8-7-5 rainbow. Still, I decide to see bet here for $325. My opponent isn't put off just yet. He makes the call. To the turn, it's the 4 of hearts. Really not great now, so when he checks to me, I decide to just check it back. The river is the 6 of hearts, straight on board, backdoor flush draw gets there, and what's more, he moves all in for $2,300. He can have a straight, he can have a flush. I don't have a heart in my hand. I don't think I can call here, but I'm not folding just yet. I'm really thinking about this spot, but after a couple of minutes, I tell myself it's an overbet jam on the river in live poker. He's probably got it, so I go ahead and fold. I ask him if he can show me a bluff. He turns over black queens. He didn't have a heart in his hand, but he had a big one in his chest to make a bluff like this. I spent the next couple of hours thinking, at least I didn't get it in pre-flop and get stacked. But a couple of hours later, I realized to myself, I wouldn't have been stacked. It would have been a chop. If only we just got it in pre, I would have got my money back. All right, next up, I look down at pocket jacks for the second time today, hoping they'll serve me a little better here. The button is raised to $50, and I put in the re-raise to $210. He makes the call. We're going heads up to the flop. Queen 7-3 with 2 spades. Not a bad board for my hand or for my range, so I decided to see bet here for $160. My opponent is going to make the call. Very standard stuff so far. To the turn, it's an offsuit ace. Really don't love that turn. I take a few seconds and check. Happy to see my opponent check it back. To the river, oh my god, it's the jack of spades. Absolute ping. I think my hand is definitely a value bet here. I don't want to check call, so I throw out a bet of $580. I'm planning to bet and then fold if I get jammed on, but as soon as I put the bet out, my opponent tells me that he hates this spot. Really good to hear that. And after a couple of minutes, I'm praying for the call. Is he going to pay me off? Eventually he does. I show my hand. He nods, and as he's mucking, he shows me ace king offsuit. Tells me he's really mad at himself for letting me get there. I kind of like his trap on the turn after I check, to be honest, but really nasty cooler for him. Still, I'm not complaining. The jacks have taken away earlier, but they've given a little back right now. All right, so the game has been short all day. It's been 4-handed, 5-handed, 6-handed. It's not been amazing, but it certainly hasn't been terrible either. After a long time of playing short-handed, it finally fills up to 8-handed. Really happy with that. Sometimes it does go ahead and break, but today we've kept it going. Next up, I'm in the hijack with king 5 of spades. I'm going to raise it on up to $50. A tiny bit too loose, but sue me. The small blind is going to make the call, as is the big blind. 3 ways to the flop. It is king 9-4 rainbow. It checks all the way around to me, and I decide to just check this one back. If we're not range betting, which I don't think we are versus 2 players, we protect our check back range with our weakest top pairs, and king 5 is for sure the weakest top pair that I've got here, so I check it on back. The turn is an offsuit deuce, and the small blind comes out swinging for a bet of $75. Folds round to me, I think, for a couple of seconds and make the call. To the river, it's an offsuit 6. Nothing really changes, and he bets again for $300. Now, I'm never folding this hand once we check back on the flop. We're just calling down. So I, of course, make the call. He turns over 5 high. I show my hand, and then I realize that 5 high is a straight. It's not possible to have 5 high. He's got 5-3 offsuit. A little surprised to see that. But yeah, nice answer. All right, next up, I'm in the middle blind with jack 8 of spades. The guy who stacked me in the very first hand today, he's having a bit of a tough day. It's just the way it goes sometimes, but it's certainly never fun. He raises it on up to $50 in the small blind. I go ahead and make the call, as does the big blind. We're 3 ways in a blind versus blind battle here, and the flop comes down ace king 4 with 2 spades. The small blind is going to bet out for $65. I can raise here, but I decide to just call, see what the big blind does. He actually goes ahead and folds. We're going heads up to the turn here, and it's the queen of spades. There's one card in the deck that gives me the nuts, and the dealer has banged it off on the turn for me. Absolutely beautiful. And what's more, my opponent continues to barrel. He bets out for $230. I think raising is fine here, but I decide to just call. Let him continue to barrel if he is bluffing. The river is an offsuit 6. Nothing changes. No 4-card flushes. No board pairing. Absolutely delighted. My opponent bets one more time for $300. He's only got about $500 behind right now, and I don't think he's ever folding. I fake tank for a couple of seconds before moving all in, and he snap folds. He was clearly bluffing, so I'm really happy I didn't raise the turn there. This is a very nice pot coming my way. What a beautiful turn card. Bit of a swingy day so far here today, but not massively up or massively down, just consistently between up and down $1,500, swinging between the two of them. Battling on though, and next up I'm in the small blind with ace-10 offsuit. Middle position is limped in. This is the guy that called my open in the small blind earlier with 5-3 offsuit, so I know he's super loose. I of course put in the raise to $90. It folds all the way back around to him, and he makes the call. Heads up to the flop, it is 7-7-4 with 2 hearts. Bit of a swing and a miss for me here, so I check it on over to my opponent. Really happy to see him check back. To the turn, it's an offsuit 3. Again, my hand is too strong to bluff, too weak to value bet, so I check to my opponent. Once again, really happy to see him check it on back. To the river, it is a 10, absolute dream river. I decide to get a little funky here. I check it on over to my opponent with the intention of check jamming. He's only got about $700 or $800 behind at this point. And if he's got a complete airball, I want to go ahead and let him bluff. But when he does bet out, it's for $200, which is a pot-sized bet. I don't know, something seemed off to me. So I just make the call. My opponent turns over ace-7 offsuits, and clearly for some reason I think ace-10 beats ace-7 on this board.
10.
3.
Oh!
No, 10. 10 wins.
All right, next up, I am in the big blind with Queen 8 of spades. The action is folded all the way around to the middle blind, and he raises it on up to $70. I, of course, make the call. We're going heads up to the flop, which is 8-7-6 with 2 hearts. This is really not a great board for the raiser. I actually check my entire range on any 8 high and below flop straight boards, but that's not the strategy for everyone, including this guy, as he bets out for $75. I don't think my hand is strong enough to raise here. I just call. To the turn, it's an offsuit king, and my opponent bets out for $100. I really don't love this spot, but I'm ahead of bluffs. He could have a worse hand for value, and people love to just give up on the river in live poker. So I make the call, and the river is a queen. Absolutely delighted to improve. I make 2 pair, and my opponent bets out once more for $325. Now, I can beat value, I can beat bluffs. This is a very easy call for us here. I go ahead and make the call, and he turns over 10-9 suited for the flop nuts. This makes a lot of sense when people should be checking their entire range or close to it, and they bet. It normally means they have a strong hand. A little annoying. I was super happy with that river, but in hindsight, it's cost me an extra $325. What can you do? All right, so when you're playing 5, 10, 20 and the straddle is on, the straddle is, of course, to $40. We've got a round of 40s going on here. Absolutely love this big game, as I said earlier. The action's folded around to me in the middle blind here, and I've got ace-jack offsuit. I put in the raise to $130. The big blind is the pro that had the queens earlier. He makes the call, and the straddle calls as well. We're going 3 ways to the flop here. It is ace-10-8 with 2 hearts and 1 diamond. I've got top pair with a good kicker and lots of value to be had here, so I bet out for $135. The big blind makes the call. The straddle thinks for a second and gets out the way. We're heads up to the turn, which is the 4 of diamonds. 2 flush draws on board now, and I decide to keep betting my hand. I bet again for $430. My opponent thinks for a few seconds and then makes the call. Lots of bad rivers for us, but this is an interesting one. It's an offsuit 10. He's, of course, going to have some 10x that will get a flush draw, but also a lot of worse ace-x hands in his range as well, so I decide to go for some thin-ish value. I bet out for $1,000 exactly, and my opponent immediately goes into the tank. I'm having a little glance at him from time to time to see if he's looking strong or if he looks like he might be gearing up to bluff. He's deep in the tank, not giving anything away. He could be tank folding, tank calling, tank raising. I don't know what he's thinking, but after a long time, he says, all right, you got it, and folds. I ask him about an hour later what he had, and he tells me that he had ace-jack. I couldn't believe it. He's not the type of guy to lie either, so I genuinely believe that I've just value bet him off of a chop here. All right, about an hour has gone by since that ace-jack value bluff. Nothing has happened for me. The game is back down to 5-handed. It's not a bad game at all now, but it is on the verge of breaking. Next up, I'm in the big blind with ace-3 offsuit. The small blind is limp. That's the guy with the 5-3 offsuit from earlier. The middle blind calls, and I decide to check. To the flop we go. It is 10-3-3. 3 threes for Gazzy B. Amazing flop for me here. It checks on over to me, and I decide to just fuck it and bomb it for $50. The small blind is going to make the call. The other player makes the fold. To the turn, it is a rainbow 7, and I decide to fuck it and bomb it once more for $150. My opponent calls again. The river is an 8. Really happy to see that. If he's got a 10, he's going to think he has the best hand a lot. I bet out for $400. 3 absolute bombs and 3 bombs that have been snap called. My opponent sighs, nods his head, and mucks. I've gotten max value on all 3 streets here. Kind of proud of this one. He was actually a really nice guy, but this hand has left him short. And just a couple of hands later, we end up getting it in for his last few hundred. I've got pocket 8s. The flop is 7 high with a flush draw. The board runs out ace on the turn, 6 on the river. He says that he missed, and he mucks his hand after I show my pocket 8s. He taps the table and heads off. This leaves us 4-handed for a little while. We try and keep the game going, but unfortunately it's gonna break here. I end up booking a small loss for the day, $1,300 or so, but I head to the cashier having had a really fun day overall. Everyone's been laughing and joking the way the game should be played. Another nice afternoon here at the Hustler Casino. Alright guys and girls, that's going to do it for another episode. I lost $1,320, which is chilled. I won about $400 playing the bigger game. It was really nice to get 5, 10, 20, not 5, 10 with a straddle, but 5, 10, 20. It's a deeper game. It's really cool. I was really happy to get that off the ground today. Didn't run amazing. Didn't run terribly, but didn't, you know, have nuclear heat or anything like that. But I enjoyed the game. It was good fun. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the show. Click that sub button. Until next time, take it easy.